We are live here on Facebook Live. We are live here on the Cover 2 podcast. Brand new studio. As you can see, we look a little different because the room is a little different. You can see the whole new decoration. We have Cardinals stuff. If you can see it, we got Cowboy stuff. We even got an Angels hat, which I will move in a second, but we are live, so I can't do much. Today on the show, we are talking about Antonio Brown officially asked for his trade, which means his tenure with the Pittsburgh Steelers is officially over.
Not officially, because he hasn't been traded.
True, that's true.
But could be over.
But essentially, his relationship with the Steelers is over.
Yes.
The Browns signed a hot new running back to their roster that has a lot of people talking, and I mean that in a joking sense. And there's also, we just learned about a trade in the NFL. A quarterback has been traded to the Denver Broncos. What does this mean for Mr. Case Keenum? Kyler Murray has chosen the NFL. We got a lot to talk about, guys.
So much news.
Not only to include that the MLB has officially started its spring training. Pitchers and catchers have reported. But we're going to start with the NFL. Antonio Brown is the biggest story the last couple days, so we're going to start with that. Jared, I'll give you the floor on this. Brown, like I said, he asked for a trade from the Pittsburgh Steelers. A bunch of teams, a bunch of players have courted him already. What do you think about this? Does this change anything from what you thought early, at the end of the season? And possibly, who do you think he could end up with?
Yeah, no, this is not surprising, at least for someone who has been following this situation since the beginning. And there's been a lot of turmoil with Antonio Brown and the Pittsburgh Steelers organization. Now, listen, the thing is, and this can be comparable to the Anthony Davis potential turmoil with the New Orleans Pelicans and the NBA, which Nick and I have been discussing for the last few weeks. And basically, what's going on right now is Antonio Brown still has 3 years left on his contract. So it's not like he's a free agent and he can go wherever he would like.
Yeah.
We have a visitor.
We have a visitor real quick.
Visiting engineer.
Fix the audio real quick here on OC Rock Radio.
There we go.
What were you saying, Jared?
Thank you.
Perfect.
Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Making
awesome.
sure we're straight. Like
audio,
I said, this is
audio difficulties right there. Brand new studio. Obviously, we need to maneuver some things, but go ahead, finish your thought.
Thank you. Before I was rudely interrupted. Not rudely. So Antonio Brown still has 3 years left on his contract, which means that the Pittsburgh Steelers own his rights, and they do not have to trade him or do anything with him. Antonio Brown obviously has expressed his frustration. The last game of the season this past season, Antonio Brown did not suit up. He was in a mink fur coat on the sidelines, and he left that game at halftime.
Not a good look.
So that kind of just shows where Antonio Brown and the Steelers organization is as far as their love interest for each other right now. But here's the thing. Antonio Brown is still, in my opinion, one of the top 3 receivers in the NFL.
That.
Period. Hands down, no question. If you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, you don't just go and trade a guy because he's necessarily not happy. I think you make things work. Like, these are grown men, grown people, right? I think you have to sit down, have an adult conversation, and find a way to resolve this because I don't think that you trade a guy who's in his prime still just because he's having somewhat of a hissy fit and he doesn't want to be with your organization anymore. Now, if he holds out and, he says he's not going to play regardless, then, if you take him seriously enough, then maybe you think about trading him. But then the question is, what is his worth? What can you get for him? Some people were saying, they deserve at least a first-round pick, but Antonio Brown will turn 30 as of next year. So, is it worth a first-round pick to other teams to trade for him? Nick, that is my question to you. I want to get your thoughts on this as well. And if the Pittsburgh Steelers do entertain the trade offer or trading him, what would they expect to get in return?
It's a very interesting question because, like you mentioned, he's got 3 years on his deal, so that's a lot of control. That does help the value of the trade. But like you mentioned, he also is 30 years old. We look at some of the older wide receivers in the league. Larry Fitzgerald probably is the top example of an older receiver that has been successful. But Larry Fitzgerald is not going to be he's not going to be traded for, say, a first-round pick or a second-round pick if the Cardinals were to trade him. It'd be more like a third-round pick, fourth-round pick, fifth-round pick, something like that. We've seen a lot of times where older quarterbacks get traded for sixth, seventh-round picks. Carson Palmer to the Cardinals. I just know that because I follow the team. But you see a lot of quarterbacks that get traded for late-round draft picks, and wide receivers in today's NFL are just valued less. So I think for Antonio Brown, looking at a lot of different variables, his contract also is a lot of money as well. I forget the exact measure of how much cap it would take up of a team's cap space, but it was a lot. It's more than a normal wide receiver. I still think that you could get a first-round pick for him because he's still essentially in the prime of his career. I think a team would give that up for him. We've seen, Amari Cooper, Khalil Mack. Obviously, a lot of these guys traded for first-round picks. I think Antonio Brown is right in the middle of those two, to be honest. Now, Amari Cooper is very young, so is Khalil Mack. But Brown has proven that he doesn't get hurt a lot. He's he still has a lot of his speed. So I do think a first-round pick would be applicable. I would offer a second-round pick to see what the interest is of of the Steelers. But I believe the Steelers are going to be going for first-round pick, or essentially he's not going to get traded. So although I believe he's more of a second-round pick, third-round pick, maybe 2 second-round picks, something like that at most, I do think he'll eventually get traded for a first-round pick just because his production on the field, his lack of serious injury in his career, and the fact that he has 3 years of control, I think that would offer and be applicable for a first-round pick.
Ooh, I'm currently looking at Antonio Brown's contract.
Yes.
And it does not look good for the Pittsburgh Steelers if they were to trade him. Because they did restructure his contract last year, they are giving him a lot of money up front. But let me just break the numbers down for 2019 and 2020 if he were to stay with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yes.
So for this upcoming season, 2019, Antonio Brown's base salary is $12.6 million with a $7 million prorated signing bonus, which means he gets that $7 million basically day one when he shows up for training camp, if I'm not mistaken. He has a $2.5 million roster bonus, and the cap hit, if the Pittsburgh Steelers were to release him, would be $22 million.
Oh, my God.
For one player, $22 million.
That's not worth it. Yeah.
The salary cap for an entire team is over $100 million. I don't know what the exact number is. I think it's around 120 or 130 million. But still, to have over 20% of that go to one player, and now he's not on your team anymore, that's all dead money that you were not able to spend for that particular year. So now looking into 2020, his base salary dips from $12.6 million to $11.3. So it dips a little over $1 million. His prorated signing bonus stays at $7 million, and his cap number drops from $22 to $18 million. So I know those are a lot of numbers, and I'm not trying to sit here and bore people with that. We're just trying to give you the facts of basically Antonio Brown is getting paid a lot of money.
Yeah.
And for the Pittsburgh Steelers to trade him, number one, that other team would have to want to absorb Antonio Brown's contract. But the Pittsburgh Steelers, with the signing bonus and the cap hit, would still be taking a substantial financial hit if they do trade him, regardless of the draft pick compensation that they get in return. So there's a lot of variable factors going into this, and this isn't just about, okay, let's just trade him and completely be done with him, because they're still going to have to deal with dead money and still paying him a portion of his contract, even though he would still not be with the team.
Yeah, it's not as easy as, let's go trade Antonio Brown. It's not that easy. There's a lot that goes with this. They signed him to a long-term deal for him to be there for 3 more years. He doesn't want to be there for whatever reason. So now they likely can trade him because, like I said, he still is, I believe, in the prime of his career. Now, let's say he gets hurt this year, something happens, he starts to decline a little bit. That's a possibility. But you don't pay someone for that kind of thing. You pay them for, a lot of times, their production in the past and what you think they can at least do in the very beginning of the contract when you sign an older player. Now, teams that he possibly could get traded to, like we mentioned a lot of money, so it's got to be teams with cap space. There are certain teams, that are out there that cannot afford him, so we're not going to say those teams. Jared, I did ask you in the very beginning of the podcast, maybe give us one or two teams or maybe a favorite that you believe could possibly want Antonio Brown and could actually afford Antonio Brown.
Right. Well, I think the headline favorite so far has to be the 49ers. Mm-hmm. And that's for multiple reasons. Number one, Antonio Brown has been in San Francisco recently. Jerry Rice, the Hall of Famer GOAT receiver for the 49ers, has already come out and said that Antonio Brown would like to be here and like to play for this organization. You've had Terrell Owens come out and speak on good terms about the 49ers and Antonio Brown. So, when you have players backing you like that, there seems to be some type of momentum going that way. We'll see if that actually happens. But just to give another team, and I'm only going to mention one other team because they've just been buzzing on the top of my head, the New York Jets. And it seems like the Jets always have a lot of cap room and a lot of cap money to go and spend during free agency. And while they just drafted Sam Darnold last year, the first overall draft pick, and their hopeful quarterback of the future, they wouldn't necessarily. I wouldn't say that they have a number one receiver or a offensive weapon for Sam Darnold right now. Now there's been talks of even Le'Veon Bell, potentially being offered a contract by the Jets. Like I said, they're going to have a lot of money, but I would want to also give Sam Darnold a number one receiving threat, and who better than Antonio Brown? So that would be another team that I would kind of watch out for as maybe a potential dark horse. Like I said, there's been rumors already and reports of the San Francisco 49ers, so I think that one's out there. But the Jets, in my opinion, would potentially be another good fit for that team and organization and Antonio Brown.
Yeah, you kind of stole the two teams off the top of my head, too. I was thinking the Giants, but I knew you were going to say the 49ers. But realistically, these are the teams that he more than likely could get traded to. The Jets I'm looking at have $95 million in cap space. The 49ers, $60 million in cap space. An established quarterback. In my opinion, a better team than the Jets. So I think that would be his first, that he'd be his favorite to go to. Maybe the Browns, they have $80 million via cap space. The Texans have a lot of money, although they do have DeAndre Hopkins. To have Deshaun Watson, DeAndre Hopkins, and Antonio Brown on the same team would be crazy. Of course, you don't talk about cap space without mentioning the Indianapolis Colts. And just to throw a biased one out there, Patrick Peterson did reach out on Twitter to Antonio Brown about possibly joining the Cardinals' new offense. They do have $42 million in cap space and are willing to trade some players for sort of a quick rebuild. So those are a couple teams right there. The Raiders as well, although I don't think their roster is well enough for him to get traded. But like I said, he's not signing anywhere. This isn't Bryce Harper, Manny Machado like in baseball.
Right.
He has to get traded. So if the Raiders offer up some of those first-round picks that they have, because they have expendable ones, and you want to combine Derek Carr with Antonio Brown, he still goes to the Bay Area, that could be a possible place too. I think it'd look real weird if Antonio Brown was in the Raiders jersey, but still, you never know. But it will be interesting to follow this the rest of the offseason. Obviously, we followed the Le'Veon Bell stuff, which is still going. He never was signed. Exactly. He never actually played. So this technically could happen to Antonio Brown too. Football's kind of changing forever with these guys not wanting to be franchise tagged or wanting to leave teams. You didn't see this in the past, and now you're starting to see this more and more. Anything you'd like to say more about the Antonio Brown situation?
Yeah, no, the last thing that I will say, and I'm kind of piggybacking off of what I said last week as far as the Anthony Davis situation goes, I can guarantee you this. We don't know a whole lot about the situation because it's so new and so fluid.
Yes.
But I guarantee you that there are many organizations, many owners, even many agents who probably do not want to see this trade happen with the Steelers trading Antonio Brown. And it's for one simple reason. The fact that Antonio Brown still has 3 years left on a contract that he signed and said that he would play for, right? So this is basically would be like a player forcing his way out of a team and out of an organization and out of a contract. And if this were to happen, now obviously Antonio Brown is a superstar, and it's not like you're going to see just everyday players doing this. But I think this would kind of start to put in the minds of stars and guys who might have some leeway to say, hey, you know what? I don't like it here anymore, wherever they are. I want to be traded. And if this trade goes through, then I think you're going to slowly start to see more players star athletes want to do the same thing, and I think it's going to be a bad look for teams and for agents because it's just going to cause a lot more stress. Teams aren't going to want to sign players to 4 and 5 year contracts anymore because they're going to say, well, what's the guarantee that you're really going to stay with us? How do we know that if we have a losing season or if something goes wrong, that you're just not going to want to, demand a trade? So, for Antonio Brown, not that I understand, but I see where he's coming from and wanting to get out of the situation because he doesn't like Pittsburgh. But, I think this can have a ripple effect on future contracts for players if this were to play out.
That's a very good point you make, too. And for the Steelers, I do personally believe he will get traded because they have Juju Smith-Schuster. And I think if they didn't have Juju, then they're essentially trading their best player and with nobody else position-wise there for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But they do have a star in the making. Juju's one of the more popular players, at least in recent memory, as far as NFL players go. He's a fan favorite. He was a Pro Bowler, I believe, this year, correct?
He was.
Yeah. So, he's still a Pro Bowl wide receiver. Not a lot of teams have that option to go to when you trade your star wide receiver.
Right.
So I think with Juju, they'll actually be able to trade Antonio Brown and maybe not even ask for as much because they want to just kind of get rid of him, get rid of the bad stuff, considering that Le'Veon Bell and now Antonio Brown have essentially done the same thing. Similar things, not the same thing, but they've essentially said, I don't want to play for the Steelers anymore because of my usage, so let me get the hell out of here.
Right,
you know what I'm saying?
I would just say watch out with that factor. And listen, I understand what you're saying about Juju, and yes, he can take over and will take over as that number one receiver if Antonio Brown leaves. But just be careful of this because Juju Smith-Schuster, a reason why he has done so well in his early career is because he's had Antonio Brown on the other side of the field with him, right? So teams can't sit here and double team Juju because they're so focused on Antonio Brown. You take Antonio Brown out of that picture, and all of a sudden Juju's going to be double and triple teamed. So while he is still a great athlete and he will still be the number one receiver on that team, his production and his stats might dip a little bit. So just be wary of that. Like, I don't expect Juju Smith-Schuster to continue this huge hot streak that he's been on if the Steelers trade Antonio Brown and don't get someone else to complement him. You see what I'm saying?
No, it makes sense.
I would just, don't sit here and expect Juju to continue to be the ridiculous receiver that he's been if they don't bring someone else in. I would be very hesitant of him being a number one receiver.
Well, absolutely, and there's a phone ringing in the room right now. That's why you can hear that sound turned off in one of the breaks. But nonetheless, if you look at the Steelers, they have to just go out and either trade for another receiver or draft a receiver. If they get an extra draft pick, go use that draft pick or one of your draft picks, because you then have an extra one to go draft a complement wide receiver. So maybe that dude becomes the next Juju Smith.
That's a good possibility.
So, they do have James Washington, who's not a great wide receiver, but he's a good complement. If they were to have Juju, James Washington, and somebody else, that is good enough for the Steelers offense. I know they didn't make the playoffs this year. Some of that was due to the fact that Antonio Brown maybe wasn't fully involved in the playbook, stuff like that. But I do believe that this team is close and still could win a Super Bowl with their quarterback. James Conner is a very good running back. Their defense is improving, although they did lose, unfortunately, their star player in Ryan Shazier a year ago to an injury. I still think that defense is getting better and better each year rather than worse and worse. So they have a team that can possibly go and still make the playoffs and potentially even make the Super Bowl as well. So we're going to transition as that phone continues to ring to Kareem Hunt. The Kareem Hunt obviously is the embattled running back for the Kansas City Chiefs that was, suspended by the NFL for domestic abuse charges. Jerry, why don't you continue this? I'm going to actually try to turn this off real quick.
Yes, so continue on this. Kareem Hunt, for those who do not know, was let go by the Kansas City Chiefs in the middle of last year when a video surfaced of him in a Cleveland hotel where he was seen shoving and kicking a woman. And when this video was released by TMZ, the Chiefs immediately took action and released Kareem Hunt outright. Roger Goodell and the NFL then took it a step further and put Kareem Hunt on the commissioner's exempt list, which means that he's not allowed to practice, play, or even be and around the team facilities, regardless of whether he's with Kansas City or whether he gets picked up by another team. He is currently still on that exempt list. So even though the Cleveland Browns did make the move to sign him to that one-year deal, he is still not allowed to practice, even though right now it's in the offseason. But say they were practicing or say there was a game this week, Kareem Hunt would not be allowed to play. Now, as far as I know, the NFL is still doing their own investigation separate from the police or the Kansas City Chiefs or anyone else. So when the NFL concludes their investigation, there will be a suspension for Kareem Hunt, whether it be 6 games, 10 games, a full season. I can almost guarantee you that there will be a suspension. The Cleveland Browns have come out, and GM John Dorsey have said that they've obviously are expecting a suspension. They said they've gone through a thorough kind of background investigation of their own. And it's very interesting that Cleveland would pick up Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt is from Ohio. He played at Toledo, which is about 100 miles west of Cleveland.
Yeah, not very far though.
Right. And Dorsey, the now Browns GM, was in Kansas City and helped draft Kareem Hunt just 2 years ago. So there's a couple ties as to why Cleveland would bring in Kareem Hunt. The big question is, was that the right move, seeing as how he is now looked at as an abuser of women? And we all know what happened with the Ray Rice situation just a few years ago, and that video came out, and Ray Rice has not been in the NFL since. So, Nick, I would like to get your thoughts on this and why maybe you think the Cleveland Browns did this, and if it was the right decision or not.
I mean, I don't think it's the right decision. I mean, you look at what happened with Ray Rice, and why is Kareem Hunt essentially only missing half a season?
Potentially,
right?
We don't know what this.
No, true, but he was essentially exempt from the NFL. But he was released by the Chiefs, wasn't playing for an organization, didn't even have the opportunity to play for anybody for like a couple months. And I think when you look at what happened with Ray Rice, obviously there's a different precedent for some reason for people when they hear about a domestic violence charge that there's no video, and then when there is a video, there's obviously little more serious punishment. I guess because we get to see it in the flesh. It's not just the police seeing it, it's the entire world, essentially. And so, with Ray Rice, he has never played again. And I know he was older, and I know there's some different factors, and Kareem Hunt is a young, up-and-coming running back. But with him, I thought that he needed... I was surprised that he was signed this offseason. I thought he might be signed by a team next season, maybe middle of the year. In that way, he gets his year punishment, he gets exempt, and he takes a whole year off. I just think there needed to be... Kareem Hunt just kind of needed to go away for a bit, right? So not that we forget about what he did, but there's time to, temper the anger in some fans about this guy getting signed and what he did to women. So, I don't agree with it. I don't know if you just said this a second ago because I was looking some up on my computer, but John Dorsey, the GM of the Browns, was the man that drafted Kareem Hunt.
Yes,
yeah, you did say it. Okay,
yes.
so that is the reason I think they signed him. I think the Browns look at it as they already have Nick Chubb, they already have Duke Johnson Jr. Why not go add this guy and see if it can work? See if he rehabilitates himself. See if potentially he can come back in a manner of time. I don't know exactly what the exempt list means as far as a suspension with the NFL, because, of course, with domestic violence, we have no idea what any of these suspensions ever going to be are. Cite Ezekiel Elliott a couple years ago. So, what does it exactly mean? How many games is he going to get suspended? I think they sign him and go, well, whatever happens, happens, like Josh Gordon with the Patriots. They still won the Super Bowl, and Josh Gordon didn't finish the season with him. So, I think the Browns are going to be fine without Kareem Hunt. But I think they sign him to see maybe rehabilitates himself, and we have a three-headed monster at running back. I don't think it's okay, though. I think Kareem Hunt should have gone away for at least another year.
Right. So very quickly, I'm going to get this out of the way. I don't condone the signing. I don't believe that Kareem Hunt should be in the league, nor do I think he should ever be in the league again. That's just my own opinion. I do agree with you, Nick. Secondly, the Browns, they first of all signed him to a one-year contract. Whether Kareem Hunt is suspended for 2 games, 10 games, or the entire season, the Browns, at the end of next season, will still he will only be a restricted free agent, Kareem Hunt will, which means that the Cleveland Browns will be able to match any other offer that a team would bring to Kareem Hunt. So say the Baltimore Ravens decide to offer Kareem Hunt a 2-year contract.
Yes.
The Cleveland Browns will be able to at least match that offer. So they, in a sense, still own his rights. It's not like Kareem Hunt would be an unrestricted free agent after next year and he can go wherever he wants. So that is where that goes. And really, one of the first things that I thought of when this whole situation went down and the Cleveland Browns did sign Kareem Hunt was I thought of Colin Kaepernick. Mm-hmm. And basically, it comes down to as simple as this. Colin Kaepernick, a man who took a knee during the national anthem, has peacefully protested, and I want to emphasize peacefully because he did not hit a woman, he did not put his hands on a woman, he did not physically or verbally abuse a woman, yet he chose to take a knee during a voluntary celebration, and it is a voluntary celebration. No one says that you have to stand or that you have to put your hand over your chest. So he chose to do that, and he has now not gotten any offers from a team, nor has he been able to get back into the NFL. But yet we have a player who is seen on video pushing and shoving a woman and physically abusing her, and yet less than 6 months down the road and he is already back on a team. So I have a problem with this, number one, because of what Kareem Hunt did, but also because of the fact that it seems like owners are willing to bring a player on who assaults a woman as opposed to giving a guy a chance who took a knee for the national anthem.
I mean, think about it this way, too, and you brought up a way better reason than I was going to bring up, so credit to you for that. But, you even look at the NFL and just the kind of stuff they've done in the past. Obviously, with the marijuana suspensions and stuff like that, guys just getting suspended for ridiculous amounts compared to domestic violence. It's just ridiculous. A guy like Josh Gordon, he does have a drug and alcohol problem, clearly, okay? But there's been other guys in the past who have been suspended for way too long for stuff that is not as bad as assaulting someone, let alone assaulting a woman. You look at, these aren't football players, but like the NFL is completely against the kind of comedy sports, barstool sports, and they're kicking him out of the Super Bowl and stuff. But Dave Portnoy's not allowed at the Super Bowl, but Kareem Hunt's allowed to play for an NFL game. Come on, guys. Like, I know it's not a player, it's not comparable, but just it's so ridiculous how the NFL operates. Like you said, it took Eric Reid's been given like 11 drug tests because he's associated with Colin Kaepernick.
Randomly,
yeah. Most players get 2 or 3 during a year. Randomly, Eric Reid got one every single week. Colin Kaepernick has not been signed, whereas people are talking about some of these AAF guys getting signed. Right? It is ridiculous, and for a guy like Kareem Hunt to get signed so quickly, that's why I wanted to stress, so quickly, like at least go away for a year, and then people go, oh, remember that running back? Okay, I guess, he's done his rehabilitation, whatever, we don't think that the Ray Rice thing was okay, a guy should get a second chance, that's fine with me. I also would be okay with never seeing the guy I had settled for that guy never playing in the NFL again. The Chiefs, they didn't win the Super Bowl, they didn't get to the Super Bowl, but Damian Williams was a pretty good running back for them, and I think he's their running back for the future. The Browns don't need him, and it's a schemey way for them to say that if he gets suspended the whole year, they can sign him, like when I said, a year has gone past. It's just schemey. It's not good. And it's bad that John Dorsey did this. So, it's unfortunate. I'm glad you brought up the Colin Kaepernick reason because that was way better than anything I had to say on this. But that's the perfect example. Kaepernick doesn't get signed for political reasons. Kareem Hunt tries to kick a woman while she's down, literally, and gets signed 3 months later. Yeah. Or however many months it was. So it is ridiculous, and it's unfortunate that we have to keep, because I think we've talked about this kind of stuff before on the podcast, with these guys doing this stuff to women and then the suspensions, all this stuff. Obviously, Ezekiel Elliott, not even, Ezekiel Elliott was proven that he didn't do that and still was suspended 6 games. But then Kareem Hunt gets signed by a team. It just doesn't, it's so ass backwards, to be honest, to use, I apologize for my language, but it's just so backwards the way the NFL works. I just can't wait for the day Roger Goodell is not commissioner anymore. It's going to be fantastic, and I think one of the reasons the AAF was so popular this weekend was it was different than the NFL. It wasn't led by Roger Goodell. There wasn't this domestic violence stuff. Right. So we'll see down the line what happens with the AAF and stuff like that, how popular it really is. But it beat the NBA on ABC this week, mainly because I think a lot of people want to see, number one, football, because football is popular, but maybe a different style of football. So, and this is one of the reasons, right?
Very, very quickly, I want to give a shout out to Eric Reed, who signed a 3-year contract with the Carolina Panthers, I believe, for close to $22 million.
$13 million guaranteed.
Good on the Panthers for deciding to give him a second opportunity, and hopefully maybe a team can still come out and sign Colin Kaepernick, because I guarantee you this right now, Colin Kaepernick is better than about at least half of the NFL quarterbacks who are currently in the NFL right now. But shout out to Eric Reed.
Yeah, no, good for Eric Reed. 23 years, $22 million. No money guaranteed yet, but basing off what Robert Alford got, I assume he'd get around 13, 14, 15 million guaranteed on that contract. But yeah, one of the higher paid safeties in the league now too. So that's pretty.
He's a very, very good safety, hard hitting safety.
Obviously,
he was a leader for the 49ers. So the Carolina Panthers are getting a great player, and I think if they can deal with what now, the one thing I will say, Eric Reed has said that he will not back down as far as continuing to protest and do those types of things, and also trying to help get Colin Kaepernick back into the NFL. So the Carolina Panthers obviously have to be okay with knowing that there will still be some backlash potentially from fans and other teams and that type of thing, but they were comfortable enough with Eric Reed to still sign him. So good for them.
Thinking about the Carolina Panthers real quick, because we only got about a minute left in this segment. Looks like they need a quarterback next year. Maybe go out and sign a guy that runs kind of a similar system and call it. I'm just saying, if the Panthers are willing to sign Eric Reed, why not go sign Colin Kaepernick?
They do say that Cam Newton's shoulder injury was not as severe as they thought. It is as
severe, though. I think it's as severe.
And they say that he will be ready for training camp and back for week 1.
I mean, as a football analysis, I don't think he's going to be ready to play. The way he was throwing, I don't think one surgery can fix it. I think he needs that Andrew Luck surgery where it takes like a year off. Go sign a veteran. Realistically, you'd probably say Nick Foles, but why not Colin Kaepernick? He fits the system better, right?
Hey.
I'm just saying.
Hey.
I'm just saying.
I'm not disagreeing.
You signed his friend Eric Reed. Might as well go sign Colin Kaepernick. So, nonetheless, we need to go to break. We're going to continue with football, but there's a lot of news today. We have a trade of a quarterback to the Denver Broncos we're going to talk about. Still getting the details on that. That's why we didn't want to talk about it in the first segment. And a player has chosen the NFL over the MLB. I think you know what it is, and I think I mentioned him earlier anyway, so there's no surprise in what I'm talking about. But that stuff is coming up on the other side of this quick break. This is the Cover 2 podcast on OC Rock Radio.
That's the thing, Wendy. Now we know he's fully committed. He's all in. You can't be a part-time quarterback in the NFL like defensive backs and running backs have been in the past. So I think now the NFL, go to the combine. It's not about throwing. We know he's got a great arm. We know he can run as fast as anybody. It's not about a 40 time. It's about the height, Wendy. Is he 5'9", 5'9.5", 5'10"? How teams assess that. How he looks physically in terms of his frame and his body type. And then the interview session is going to be critical. And that always is the most critical part of the evaluation process at the combine, is those one-on-one interviews with those NFL teams. And teams at 4 with Oakland, think about Giants at 6, Jacksonville at 7, Denver at 10, Miami at 13. Could all be thinking quarterback. And it's Dwayne Haskins, Ohio State, and it's Kyler Murray, Oklahoma, as your 2 top QBs in this draft.
My understanding is the Baltimore Ravens are getting a mid-round pick, possibly a 4th rounder in exchange for Joe Flacco. And really not a surprise that the Ravens were going to deal him. We really knew this mid-season and toward the end of the season that it was going to be Lamar Jackson going forward. And the Ravens were going to move on from Flacco either way, either whether they would have to release him or whether they were going to be able to trade him. And it is pretty clear that the Denver Broncos were looking to upgrade at the quarterback position. I know they talked to a couple teams before settling on Joe Flacco as their answer. But this is clearly not the end of the story here for the Denver Broncos.
Well, like I said, we are going to continue our NFL talk as a former Super Bowl winning quarterback was just traded. And we have a player coming out of college who just chose the NFL over Major League Baseball. But we do want to get to that breaking news trade that just happened this early morning on Wednesday. Joe Flacco, who won a Super Bowl with Baltimore a few years ago, was just traded from Baltimore to Denver, replacing the now Case Keenum, who signed a 2-year deal last offseason. So breaking news into
Yes.
the Cover 2 podcast room, which basically means that the Baltimore Ravens are now 100% fully committing to Lamar Jackson, who they drafted in the first round last year. So, Nick, I want to get your quick thoughts on this,
Yes.
what this means for Denver, and now also what this means for Baltimore as they are now fully moving on to Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, it was expected that Lamar Jackson was going to be the quarterback of the Baltimore Ravens. We saw that last year when Flacco didn't come into that playoff game, although I urged them to put him in because he could pass a lot further, and I thought that the Chargers' game plan, was gonna work better with Lamar Jackson as the quarterback. Nonetheless, they didn't do that, but that kind of proved that John Harbaugh not only was going to stay, because he has since signed an extension, but was going to go with Lamar Jackson as his quarterback. So Joe Flacco getting traded is not a super shock. To where he got traded is kind of a shock. The Denver Broncos, who have I don't want to say established quarterback in Case Keenum, but there's a lot of money invested in Case Keenum, and this could be one of those salary dump trades where the Broncos are going to release him when the league starts on March 13th. Once again, also this trade cannot happen legally until March 13th when the new season starts, so we don't know what pick is going over for him and stuff like that. It's just said that the trade has been agreed upon and it will happen March 13th. So
it will more than likely be a mid-round pick.
Exactly.
The Broncos currently have 2 fourth-round picks, one of their own and one from Houston when they traded away Demaryius Thomas.
Yeah.
So it could easily be a fourth-round pick. And I didn't mean to jump in there, but very quickly, Case Keenum was given a 2-year, $36 million contract. Mm-hmm. Only $7 million is in guarantees.
Ooh.
So if the Broncos do release Case Keenum, they will only have to give him that $7 million, but they will also accrue a $10 million dead money cap hit. So $10 million that they won't be able to spend this offseason. So really $17 million, in a sense, going down the drain for them. But, if they don't find it, or maybe they keep him as the backup, who knows? But if they do release Case Keenum, that's where they will be as far as their money goes.
Yeah, and it will be interesting to see what the Broncos do, because Flacco and Keenum, kind of the same guy. They're both very average quarterbacks. They're both guys that you don't think of anymore as Super Bowl quarterbacks. Joe Flacco obviously has won a Super Bowl a couple years back, but I don't really think of him as a Super Bowl quarterback anymore. I mean, he couldn't even beat out Lamar Jackson on his own roster, and I don't think Lamar Jackson is a Super Bowl quarterback. So, it will be very interesting to see what the Broncos do. And the Ravens now officially are going with Lamar Jackson. And it's a tough situation if you're a fan of Baltimore and you're pessimistic about, Lamar Jackson being the quarterback, because I believe he has a short life in the NFL. I think the way he's going to take hits, a lot like Cam Newton, and the way teams will eventually adjust to his playing style, I think he has about 5 good years in the NFL max. So I don't know if going with Lamar Jackson for the long haul is the right idea, but going with Joe Flacco for the long haul either is not a good idea. So it's a tough situation for the Ravens. You kind of have to go with Lamar Jackson, but you kind of hope that you would have built somebody better, at least in my opinion, behind Joe Flacco rather than Lamar Jackson. So that's all I'm going to say about that. But, Ravens need to trade for him and to get any sort of value, and especially a 4th-round pick, which I almost think is a little too high for Flacco based on where other quarterbacks have gone and got traded for. I think it's a great deal for the Ravens, who now get a 4th-round draft pick and potentially could pick another quarterback or another key position with that 4th-round pick. And for the Broncos, little quarterback, competition. Maybe Joe Flacco's ball will travel a little further in the air in Denver in that altitude. But will be interesting to see what happens with both these teams. But I don't think this trade is franchise changing in any case. Could you agree with me on that, Jared?
Oh, no way. This is not. Listen, this will not hinder the Broncos from going out and potentially grabbing another future first-round quarterback.
Yeah.
Or even bringing in another quarterback in free agency. This is what I like to call a Band-Aid, and I think the Broncos for the second year in a row have now tried to find a Band-Aid as opposed to a long-term solution. Last year getting Case Keenum from Minnesota, that is another Band-Aid type of move, right?
Yeah.
Case Keenum, yes, he had a fantastic year with Minnesota the previous year, took them to the playoffs, and got them, one win from the Super Bowl. But let's not joke ourselves here. Case Keenum is not the future of anyone's organization.
Ask any Bronco fan that, too.
Exactly.
I'm just
so
saying,
Case Keenum either led the NFL in interceptions last year or was like top 2 or 3, which is obviously not a good thing when you're turning the ball over. So obviously the Broncos wanted to make a change. But with Flacco being 34 years old, and I believe he's due close to $20 million for the next 2 years, I guarantee you, number one, the Broncos will restructure that deal, probably give him a lot more money up front. Because, seeing as Flacco has been wearing down, this is not a Tom Brady situation where, Flacco will be playing into his 40s more than likely. So this is a probably 1 to 2 year maximum solution. I believe the Broncos have the 10th overall pick in this draft, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know.
And, so far from the early mock drafts that NFL analysts have put out, it seems that there are 2 quarterbacks looking to go in the top 10. That's Dwayne Haskins and now Kyler Murray. They're both projected to go like 5 and 6, somewhere around there. So if the Broncos wanted to get in on that action sitting at number 10, they would probably have to trade up. All of that is a possibility, and we're still months away. But just giving a quick scenario of, this doesn't mean that the Broncos are done with their quarterback situation. Because if I'm them, this is, okay, we're bringing Joe Flacco in, and if we can bring in a young quarterback and develop him, and then, depending on how next season goes, potentially bring that new quarterback in and start their future from there. So I think that's what this was as far as the Denver situation.
Yeah, it's interesting, though. That's a lot of money to take on for a quarterback that's not really for your future. I was just looking at some of the stock cap numbers that you were mentioning. Nothing Joe Flacco comes with is below $20 million. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how they manage that. I'm not a Broncos fan, so I'm glad that's not the Cardinals making this decision. Let's just say that. But then let's change topics because that trade's still fluid and there's not a lot to talk. There's not a lot going on. It's not even official yet. So we will move on to a more important story in that Kyler Murray. Obviously, we know him as the Heisman-winning Oklahoma quarterback, got the Sooners to the college football playoff. Unfortunately, lost to Alabama, who was a better team. But Kyler Murray had a fantastic year. And then if you remember, before that big year happened for Oklahoma, he was signed to the Oakland Athletics, drafted in the first round by the A's, signed, had a signing bonus, and they allowed him to play at Oklahoma for 1 year. He just had to come to the MLB that next season and couldn't go back to Oklahoma again if he wanted to have a chance at the MLB. Well, he didn't go back to Oklahoma, and he didn't go to the Athletics. So he is committed to playing in the NFL. He's going to do the draft combine. He's going to do the NFL draft like every other quarterback this offseason. And he's picked football. And I'll give my take on this first. As a baseball fan, I'm disappointed because I thought this guy really could have helped the game of baseball. Playing for a franchise that isn't necessarily super popular. I think spring training ratings would have got up. I tend to go on a spring training trip every single season, and it would have been really fun to potentially see Kyler Murray in a game. I remember hunting for Tim Tebow in the Fall League once. I didn't get to see him play. And unfortunately, the Mets are in spring training in Florida, so I will not be going to see him play potentially for the Mets in their camp this year. But Kyler Murray would have been a fun thing for baseball, and he would have been on a 40-man roster and potentially even on the A's roster this season if he'd played well in spring training. And it would have been cool to see a guy that, threw passes at Oklahoma. He threw to one of my brother's really good friends, a tight end named Grant Calcaterra last season. It would have been cool to see him play Alabama one game, and the next game of his life he's playing for the Oakland Athletics. I think that'd be cool. And we've seen Bo Jackson in the past. We've seen Deion Sanders, and most recently Tim Tebow. He hasn't made the MLB, but it's still a great story. Michael Jordan also switching from basketball to the MLB, not the NFL, but still. So I'm disappointed as a baseball fan, but I do believe it looks like this is his love, right? His love is football, and he wants to play it. And to be honest, you can't go back to football, but you can in some ways go back to baseball. So let's say his NFL career didn't pan out. He always could just train, and go back to the MLB, try out. I'm sure somebody would sign him if someone signed Tim Tebow, right? So he does have that option. And let's say he gets drafted by the wrong team in the NFL. Pulls an Eli Manning and goes, you know what? I'm going back to the MLB, right? I mean, it's really, so there's a lot of things that can happen here still, but I do believe it's the decision that's probably best for him, and I'm not going to knock him on that. I don't know how good of a baseball player he is. He was drafted in the first round, which is big, but that might have been because he was the quarterback at Oklahoma and was the star player. So we'll see what happens. I do want to get your take on there because you're more of the football fan over the baseball fan. So what do you think about this decision? Do you agree with it, or do you think he should have gone to baseball?
Right. Well, first, I do want to say there will be a lot of people who are going to come out and probably disagree with Murray's decision and say, what are you thinking, man? Like, this is the NFL. In today's world, there's so many concussions, and, you can easily tear your ACL. If a player hits you low, you're a runner. Baseball is a lot safer. Over the longevity of your career, you can make more money in baseball. It's like, whoa, what are you thinking, man? Like, if you're his parents, how are you not, kind of telling him to go towards baseball and all this stuff? Guess what? If you have a passion, and it seems like he does have just a legit passion for football, I don't think you can endure that. So, yes, as more of the football guy, I guess, on this show, I don't have a problem with Kyler Murray choosing the NFL. Now, listen, what I do know about baseball is that whether you get drafted in the first round or the 15th round, you are going to the minor leagues, right? Yeah. You don't ever just get called up to the majors right away. So, yes, Kyler Murray, if he would have chosen baseball and the athletics, he would have been able to keep that entire $5 million signing bonus. And he would have traveled with the minor league teams. He obviously wouldn't have had to worry about money, but he wouldn't be in the spotlight right away. Who knows, for a year, 2 years. There's no real timetable on when Murray would be getting called up to the majors. With the NFL, he could be a potential top 10 pick, right? He could make $20-30 million in his first contract. He could potentially be the starting quarterback within 6 or 7 months of an NFL team, and he can be in the spotlight immediately. Now the longevity might not be there. He could, only play 3 years and be a bust. Who knows? But I think, like I said, if he has a passion for this game, like I believe he does, and he thinks that he can be an NFL franchise quarterback, then I do not blame him for taking this route at all. Now, there are also many other people who are saying, well, he stands at 5'9", and in my mind, there are only 2 other quarterbacks of his stature who have really been successful in the NFL. One is Doug Flutie, and the second is Drew Brees, who is currently still playing for the New Orleans Saints. So there will be a lot of skeptics out there who say, can he produce in the NFL? Can he drop back and see over the 6'1", 6'2", 300-pound linemen? How is he going to be able to throw over those guys? Listen, Drew Brees has been able to do it. Like I mentioned, Doug Flutie was able to do it. Obviously, from a measurable standpoint, of course you would like Kyler Murray to be 6 foot, 6'1". But listen, that's just not who he is. He's more of a scrambler. We're seeing that the NFL is going more towards the college system, as you see it with Lamar Jackson last year. Now, obviously, Lamar Jackson's a little bit taller, but the type of scrambling elusiveness from these quarterbacks now.
Yes.
So I think if put in the right system, Kyler Murray can succeed. And I want to emphasize putting in the right system, because if you expect him to just drop back and be a pure passer, and you don't include some runs and read options and that type of thing, then I think you're setting him up for failure. But if he goes to the right team, they're open-minded and they're willing to work with him on some of his abilities, then I think he has an opportunity to succeed in this league. So I am perfectly okay with this move.
You made a great point, too, about the salaries involved with this stuff. And you mentioned, I'm trying to find out his MLB salary they did sign. So his contract with the MLB was $4.6 million. Okay? A lot for a kid coming out of college. Most people don't get a $4.6 million contract out of college, right? Normally you got a job, maybe it's $50K per year. Kyler Murray's, for example, in the MLB would be about $1.5 million per year. So very, very good for most standards. But when you play in the NFL and you're potentially a top draft pick, which people have now said he is, there's a lot of money. And yesterday, the values for draft picks came out. Perfect timing, right? Kyler Murray picks the NFL, all of a sudden the values come out. So, you're looking at some of the teams. Obviously, there's been a lot of rumors with the Arizona Cardinals, but I believe they're going to stick with Josh Rosen. The brass came out. I don't think that's going to happen. But the Arizona Cardinals do have the first pick, and they're willing to trade it back. So, look at some of these teams, right? Oakland needs a quarterback, more than likely. Tampa Bay might need a quarterback. The Giants might need Giants need a quarterback. Jacksonville needs a quarterback. Denver still potentially needs a quarterback.
And these are all teams in the top 10?
These are all in the top 10, and then you have Cincinnati and Miami and Washington, who I believe would trade up, and they're 11, 13, and 15. So even with, let's say, somehow he drops all the way to 15, right, as far as the quarterback goes, and Washington's there to pick him, because Alex Smith might be out for all of next season with his broken leg. They need a quarterback for the future. Still be making $14 million right off his bat. That's $10 more million than the MLB would give him, and essentially he'd be the starting quarterback probably. So it's a better deal, right? He might not work out, but if he gets drafted by a team that is going to keep him behind an established quarterback, let's say maybe he gets drafted by the Chargers, for example, and he has to stay behind Phillip Rivers, or maybe the New England Patriots, and has to stay behind Tom Brady, then it's kind of similar to the NFL, to the MLB, but he's still getting paid more money up front. Now, the guaranteed on this is different. It's around what he would have got with the MLB contract, but if he is drafted to a team where he's the essential starter, he will make more than that guarantee. So there is the better possibility that he makes way more money off the bat with the NFL. So in turn, this is again why I'm saying I understand the decision. When you look at the variables, and luckily these estimates for draft picks have come out, when you look at the variables, Kyler Murray made the right decision money-wise. Health-wise, probably not, because he's a running quarterback, and we've seen what's happened to running quarterbacks, and we've seen what happened to NFL players, period, with concussions and injuries to their knees and stuff like that. A lot of NFL players are kind of broken after their careers. Kyler Murray's risking that to make more money up front. I don't blame a guy for that, okay? I probably would make the same decision, to be honest. So you look at that too. And then, for example, the top thing he could do, let's say some team trades up to number 1, trades up with the Arizona Cardinals, and picks him number 1. He'd be making $34 million. That's his contract. That's $30 more million than the MLB gave him. Also being a first-round pick. This is where you see the differences. The MLB, although they were going to adjust his contract and make it, I think we talked about this on the podcast, they were going to make it so they made more money and was on the 40-man roster, so he had a way quicker trial to the MLB.
Okay.
The MLB has now been discussing to just allow players in these situations to just make the MLB team right away. So that the MLB is adjusting accordingly to potentially allow players to have a similar, not make as much money, because the MLB just doesn't give as much money for draft picks, but you go and you play in the MLB, or at least play in AAA your first year, so you have a chance to be moved up that season.
See, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, and I'm not the baseball guru. You are, and there are a lot others who could, sit here and correct me if I'm wrong. And listen, I get both sides, because I see where baseball is trying to be innovative and trying to adjust with the times to try to make sure that they're getting the best athletes possible. But to basically sit here and just hand a player, say, hey, you're automatically going to be on the roster, like, how do you know that player is going to pan out? Like you mentioned,
well, first round pick, that's a little different.
Like you mentioned, there's been plenty of first round picks in Major League Baseball who have turned out to be busts. Yeah. So it's like you are now telling a baseball team, if this is coming from the commissioner's office of Major League Baseball, that your team has to put this player on your 40-man roster. Well, what if he's not one of the best 40 players on that roster? Now you're wasting a spot just because it's mandated and regulated in order to make sure that it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
I think it's tough. I think baseball is a tough sport, especially to be a star in, and obviously having to work your way up. But I think that is the right way to go about it. I think whether you're a first-round draft pick and you're Kyler Murray making $5 million a year, or if you're a 15th-round draft pick making less than $100,000 a year, I think you need to prove yourself in the minor leagues. And then, when the opportunity comes, if you're prepared and you're ready, then you get to go to the majors. I don't necessarily agree that just because you're Kyler Murray and they want to keep you in baseball for sponsorships and all that other buzz, that he just gets handed a AAA spot or handed a 40-man roster spot.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point in this, is that it is unfair. And I think the MLB is willing to be unfair for more popularity and potentially competition with the NFL.
That doesn't seem like the MLB, because it seems like they're always stuck in their ways, and I don't mean that in a bad way. They're so traditional in what they do that they don't bend for certain players or they don't bend for certain things. They are stuck in what they do, and that's a part of the reason why they're so successful. So for them to potentially change like this, I think is just going in a completely different direction. And I think you would see a lot of baseball fans, especially old school baseball fans, who would have an issue with this, I think.
Yeah, and here's the thing. So you look at what the spending is for a draft. So I just told you that the Arizona Cardinals have to give their number one pick, if they end up keeping the number one pick, $34 million. Now, I think the cap hit, it said, was $6 million, something like that. So not that bad.
No.
Yeah, not that bad at all. The Athletics, for their entire 40-man draft, or 40-pick draft, just below $10 million for the whole thing. So that is,
wow,
a little bit over the NFL. So you need to pay your draft picks more, right? Overall, the MLB needs to do a lot more money because there's no salary cap in the MLB. You can, if you wanted to, you could have $500 million of.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you'd have
New
to
York
pay
Yankees, Dodgers.
Exactly, you'd have to pay a ton of luxury tax.
Right.
But you could actually do that and just say F you, essentially, to the MLB and go, we want to win the World Series. We don't care. We have money. Bill Gates is our owner. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Right? Jeff Bezos is our owner. He's got $156 billion. Right? Jeff Bezos doesn't own the team. But so the fact that the A's only had $9 million to even spend on all of their draft picks is a little, that's a little weird. And that's not enough. And so I do agree with you that it would not be good in the case of the look for the MLB, but I think the MLB is starting to change a little bit because we talked about this on a podcast either last week or 2 weeks ago about universal DH and a relief pitcher having to face three pitchers. So they are making major changes to the game that we've never seen before. Someone suggested 7 innings the other day. Not realistically, it wasn't talked about in the meetings, but someone said, hey, 7 innings would make every inning count a little bit more. I disagree with them because you're not going to make basketball 3 quarters because you want it to be more exciting. It is kind of a ridiculous premise. But there's still people out there that are throwing out ideas that would majorly change baseball. And I think this is one. If there are more athletes picking the obviously more popular NFL, the MLB does need to do something to compete. My thing would be just pay your draft picks more. I know they're in the minors, but guess what? There's a reason you're drafting them in the first round, right? And especially college players who are a lot more seasoned and tend to make the MLB a lot quicker. Look at the college players that have been drafted the last couple of years. They've got, like, Steven Strasburg, for example, was number 1 pick out of college. He got to the MLB in about a year and a half. That's where he belonged. Then you have outliers like Bryce Harper that come out of high school or 18 years old at least, that end up still making the MLB a year and a half early. That doesn't usually happen. Kyler Murray was a senior in college coming out. Would be 22 years old. That's well enough to at least put him in AAA, at least put him in spring training, and he probably could prove enough that he's in the MLB. I'm not talking about putting high school kids on MLB teams, but at least if you are a college player coming in the NFL draft, I think you should be able to be signed to the 40-man roster. Just so that this kind of stuff doesn't happen, and that players just need to generally get more money. They can negotiate their contracts anyways, but there needs to be more money flowing from the MLB. You don't have a salary cap. Your salary cap, even your luxury tax is higher than what the NFL gives their teams for overall spending. Right. So why not give your draft picks? I get there's 40 of them, but give the teams $50 million to spend. So if you want to give $15 million to one guy, do it.
Right.
Right? That's all. That's my thing. You don't change the rules. Spend a little more money. They got money.
Make it
they got
more
money.
Of an incentive based.
Yeah, you're telling me that deal with Fox that they have, or the deal with ESPN they have, doesn't give them billions of dollars? Come on, you can do that. Dodgers essentially have all the money in the world because of a TV deal, so they can definitely spend on draft picks if they wanted to. But nonetheless, anything else you want to say about Kyler?
Yeah, no, that's great.
Let's go. Let's use the last 5 minutes of this segment to discuss the AAF. What was your first, the Alliance of American Football? What was your first take on it? We kind of discussed it a little bit, but what was your take on the whole this second league that has now
right? So my first viewing experience was probably like many other people's, to where I didn't get to actually see any of the games live from start to finish. My first live viewing experience was on Twitter, and I saw the hit that a defensive end put on that quarterback. And listen, I really enjoyed it, and I think the tweet said something about like people love to see like physical pain or something like that, or people love to see guys hitting.
That's why we watch boxing in the UFC,
right? And listen, I am not sitting here saying that I condone people getting injured or people purposely trying to hurt someone else. But football is a physical sport, and you wear a helmet and shoulder pads for a reason. These are also grown men who are making the choice to play. No one is forcing them to play this game. And so I think with all the rules that are in place in the NFL, it is now impacting these players in the way that they play. And I think that's a reason why there have been so many more injuries in the last decade or so. Because, listen, players are having to play more tentatively. You're having to think more. And when you think more, you're not playing at full speed. And therefore, there tends to be more injuries. So leading that into the AAF, now, I don't know if this league will, pan out and be as popular as the NFL. I don't think that will happen. Many people think that this is kind of a feeder program in a sense, and kind of like with baseball, you have the minor leagues. This could be the minor leagues of the NFL, where guys continue to stay in shape. You have an opportunity to showcase yourself, and when this season is over, you can, probably make a name for yourself. I guarantee you one thing. All 32 NFL teams will be watching this AAF to look for players to potentially pick up for their own teams. There are former players from the NFL. There are guys coming straight out of college. Trent Richardson, the former first-round pick of the Cleveland Browns, who was a huge bust. He scored a touchdown last week. So, there's guys that come from all over the place who are trying to make a second chance. And I think the great thing about it for players in the States is that they don't have to go play in a European league. They don't have to go across country. They get to stay here in the States and play. So, listen, I think it's great. I love football, so the more football, the better. I think this will continue to be a growing sport for years to come if they can work with the NFL.
Yeah, the Alliance of American Football was interesting. They had the first game this Saturday. And I was watching the Clippers game because I think they were playing the Celtics, and they had an unbelievable comeback, which we might talk about in a second. But I kept switching over back and forth, but the football, it does look a little different. It doesn't look like NFL football. It looks like, I don't want to say college football, but it just looks like somewhere in the middle of there, and it was entertaining for a bit because obviously it was football. And I like football, and I like analyzing football, I like watching football. But, let's say the Dodgers are playing, or like I said, I was watching the Clippers, who are currently in season. That was a little more on my mind than some random AAF team. Now, there is no LA team. There's a San Diego team. And, I didn't even pick the LA teams as my favorite team in the NFL. So, there's a lot of me that might be biased in this situation. But I just think that with the AAF, we'll see how long it lasts. Obviously, the XFL is looming in the next year. I don't know exactly what that's going to be, but they just announced that they have a pretty popular head coach and GM of one of their teams that they just mentioned, so there is going to be competition with that. So you just wondered how watered down these leagues are going to be, but it's nice to see a guy like Trent Richardson get another chance. It was nice to see these teams like San Antonio and San Diego's fans kind of rise up and get to follow a team that they don't have a team anymore or never had a team in San Antonio's case. And then you look at a guy like, you look at that big hit on Mike Bercovici that was not penalized. Right. That is one of the reasons I fell in love with football.
That guy would have been thrown in jail if he did that in the NFL.
Oh, yeah, seriously. Yeah, no, exactly. I'm excited that there's that kind of hits, but I'm probably only going to pay attention if something really big happens in that league. Let's say maybe a Colin Kaepernick signs in the league, or some other Johnny Manziel, something like that. It's going to get me a lot. I don't just want to watch guys that the Arizona Cardinals cut, right? Or Dallas Cowboys cut, for example. I want to watch maybe established stars, comeback stories. There's got to be something extra. And yeah, the big hits are nice, and the no kickoffs and the more scoring is nice, but it's still just looks like a minor league. I don't watch minor league baseball. I don't watch minor league hockey, and I don't watch the Gatorade League in the NBA. So I'm not going to watch the Alliance of American Football. All right, we're going to get a break. on the other side is Do You Care? We have a lot for Do You Care, too. We have tons to talk about, so stay with us. And then at the end of the show, we're going to be talking about spring training and some of the most recent signings and trades that have happened in the MLB. So stick with us. This is the Cover 2 podcast on OC Rock Radio.
We want to get to the big news of the day coming out of Anaheim, and this Anaheim team has fought adversity all season long in the middle of a 7-game losing skid and decided to finally make a coaching change. Earlier today, Randy Carlyle out as the bench boss of the Ducks. Bob Murray, GM, will come down from the ivory tower, and he will take over the coaching duties. Bob Murray with no coaching experience, at least professionally, on his resume.
I'm not sure Coach Cal agrees with all of that.
Do you remember we lost in the Final Four when there was a goal, a shot clock violation, and they said it was not reviewable? And then they changed the rule to say, why would you want to lose a game on a shot clock violation and it's easy to go check? Well, this one's easy to go check too. Just go check it.
War popping out, sets a screen. Cunningham over goal wire. Zion Williamson pulls it away, and the Blue Devils with a comeback for the ages. The biggest second-half comeback in Mike Krzyzewski's career at Duke.
We are back here on the Cover 2 podcast here on a beautiful February Wednesday morning, day before Valentine's Day. And so, guess what time it is, Jared?
What time is it, Nick?
It's time for Do You Care? First time in the new studio, playing Do You Care? We have a couple rapid-fire questions for each other, and we'll just get it started. There's no reason in waiting any longer to start the segment. Jared, you get first question. Do you care that the Duke Blue Devils came back from 23 points down last night against the Louisville Cardinals?
I do care. I've been a Duke follower ever since I can remember, always because of Coach K, not necessarily because I've never been to Duke, never went to Duke or anything like that. I've just always admired Coach K, and the fact that this Duke team, led by basically 4 freshmen in their starting lineup, they were down in the second half by 23 points with like 9 minutes and change left. In the first 30 minutes of the game, they scored like 31 points. And then the last 9 minutes, they scored 35. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what happened. I know that their flight got in super late. It got in at like midnight the night before.
Yeah.
So whether they were super tired, I don't know. But like they were just zombies on the court for the first half. And all of a sudden in the second half, during a timeout, it just clicked. After the game, Coach K said, in speaking in an interview, that he basically said, "Hey guys, we're gonna win this game." And then later on said, "Well, I don't really know if I believe that," but he was obviously just trying to give his players some confidence. So, as great as of a win that is for Duke, the fact that this game was at Louisville and Louisville gave up a 23-point lead at home,
loss.
It I think is really the more telling story. Now, Louisville is currently ranked 16th. They will probably still be ranked after this because it was a close loss.
8 losses, too. There's a lot of losses.
Listen, you're at home and you have a 23-point lead with less than 9 minutes to go, and you give it up to Duke. It's just, listen, I understand that Duke is one of the best teams in the country, but you can't give up a 23-point lead like that. It's those players today are probably feeling it, and this is going to be a tough loss to get over, too. Now, Louisville is still a good team, and they'll probably make the tournament, but I think this one's going to stick with them for a little while.
Yeah, real quick before you ask me my question, a couple stats is that Duke's had a crazy week. They, on Saturday, beat number 3 Virginia, again, highlighted by that Zion block in about the 15th row in the stands. And then they go and they beat Louisville in this crazy comeback. So they're the most entertaining team, obviously, in college basketball. I was telling my brother this. I was like, if they end up playing at the Honda Center in the Elite Eight, I'm going to actually think about really going. I want to see Zion. I want to see R.J. Barrett, all these guys, Cam Reddish. They're one of the most entertaining teams in college basketball. Also have a big game against UNC next Wednesday, the 20th. So another big game. Their season doesn't get any easier, but they keep beating teams and beating good teams. So follow through with the question now.
All right. Nick, first question for you. Do you care that LSU, the Tigers, had a controversial win in Kentucky last night against top-ranked Kentucky?
No, but it is interesting because I was just talking about there's a lot of parity in college basketball this year. Duke obviously has a lot of wins. they lost to unranked Syracuse. Michigan, a great team, lost to unranked Penn State.
Penn State last night.
Horrible. Penn State's
Came
terrible.
out of nowhere.
That can't happen. And Kentucky's a better team than LSU, and LSU beats them on this controversial win. And Kentucky actually plays. They were just about to have a huge matchup against number 1 Tennessee, too, and they fall. You could have gone to that game 1 versus 5. I was getting excited, and then Kentucky blows it. So it's been very interesting to watch because you've seen this year teams like Kansas lose a couple games in a row, and then Kentucky probably will lose a couple games in a row. They'll probably lose to Tennessee as well. So there's just a lot of parity in college basketball this year. Tennessee's remained at number 1 for a while. Duke, obviously, with 2 huge wins over number 3 Virginia. I don't really know why they're not number 1, but they are. It's whatever. They're still number 2. But so there's a lot of parity in college basketball. So I care about the parity in college basketball this year. It would be a lot harder to make our March Madness brackets because you literally won't have any idea who's going to win. But it is interesting. And this Kentucky loss to LSU, who was ranked 19, they're not better than Kentucky, though. And Kentucky can't be losing at home to LSU, who's a football school, to be honest. So it's an interesting loss there, but we're seeing a lot of them. And it will be interesting to see Kentucky at home against Tennessee if they can bounce back against the number 1 team in the nation. Jared, do you care that the Chicago Cubs are going to start their own network in 2020?
I do care, and I think this is really cool. You've seen in recent years the LA Lakers get their own television network. 24-hour, round-the-clock Lakers news. You have the Yankees who have the Yes Network. You have the Dodgers who also have Spectrum Sports. So for the Cubs, one of the most iconic baseball franchises in Major League Baseball history, it's kind of only fitting that they get their own Cubs-centric network. Now, this won't happen until 2020, and the money details haven't been worked out, I don't believe. But I think it's great whether you're a Cubs fan or not, and especially if you're a Cubs fan and you don't live in Chicago, you can find a way to watch all of these games and all the post-game and pre-game and basically everything Cubs. So I'm surprised that more professional teams have not gone this route. Now, obviously, you have to find a television station that will pair with you, or a network, I'm sorry. But the money that can come from it and the fact that it's just 24 hours, Cubs. Like I said, if you're a Cubs fan or just a fan of baseball, I think it's a great thing. So good for them. The one thing I will say, they will not be, obviously working with WGN TV,
long time partner.
Which that's been like over 70 years that they've been paired. The Cubs have been paired with that television network. So, that's kind of a sad thing for WGN, but a great thing for future Cubs fans and for that network. So I think that is really cool. Nick, do you care that the Celtics are having a bad week after not only losing a buzzer beater to the Lakers, but blowing a 20-point lead and losing to the losing to the Clippers?
Of course I got to care about this, Jared. My Clippers. I say my Clippers because I actually like them. For some reason, a lot of people in LA just don't like them, right? Even though they live in the same city.
I don't.
I like the Lakers too. I just like the Clippers as well. It's not that I even like one of the teams better than the other, but I'm going to root for a team. And it was amazing that the Clippers, after essentially trading away their best players and giving up on the season, quote unquote, go out and come back from 28 down against the Celtics. They were able to completely stop the Celtics once they lost Kyrie Irving to injury. And I think with this whole thing coming down, and then also Rajon Rondo with a classic buzzer beater against the Celtics the night before.
His first buzzer beater ever.
Exactly. Fitting in Boston as well. And that was with Kyrie in the lineup, so they couldn't even beat the lowly Lakers already, and then were able to play a bad week, right? But what it does is it calls into question concerns if you're a Celtics fan, because you look at how the team has played without Kyrie, the Clippers game and their next game, it has been very good. And there's not a lot of depth. What we thought was a lot of depth, it ends up being a lot of players that are kind of very similar and don't know how to share the ball very well and are defended a lot easier. Kyrie Irving is, in my opinion, the most difficult man to defend, maybe besides LeBron James, right, in the NBA. Okay, and maybe you could throw Russell Westbrook in that category, but James Harden as well. But so Kyrie Irving demands so much from a defense that other players get open. But when Kyrie Irving got hurt, I think the Celtics scored like less than 30 points in the second half against the Clippers. There was nothing. Gordon Hayward's supposed to be this great player. Al Horford's supposed to be this great player. Marcus Smart, Terry Rozier. They did nothing. It's not. I mean, the Clippers are a great defensive team. Don't get me wrong, but it was that was where it was more of that what I saw from them than I even saw from the Clippers or Lakers. Is that they allowed the Lakers to score 129 points, okay, or 130, and they allowed the Clippers to come back from 28. And one game Kyrie was there, and one game Kyrie wasn't there. So obviously there's just a problem with this team. And Kyrie, I feel like it's probably going to leave this Celtics team, seeing that unless they really do sign a star, I don't think the Celtics can beat a team like the Warriors. I don't even think they can beat the Philadelphia 76ers right now.
They just beat him last night.
They beat him last night, I know. But
without Kyrie.
Yes, I know. But you get a 7-game series, it's not going to happen. Like, you get a 7-game series between the Lakers and Clippers, or the Lakers... Or excuse me, the Lakers and Celtics and the Clippers and Celtics. The Celtics are probably winning, but I just think there's a bigger problem in that the Celtics seem to be star driven, and I didn't think that's what it was, and it does seem like that now. 2 bad losses. Now I might be overreacting because it was our teams. I watched those games both very intently, but it does seem like there might be a problem. Good win against the 76ers, like you mentioned. But I'm not going to take one win over a glaring problem. Just like I'm not going to take a Lakers win over the Celtics when they lose to the Hawks last night. Okay, so I'm just saying it can happen. There's a lot of parity in basketball period this year. I took too much time on that one.
It's okay.
Jared, do you care that the Dallas XFL franchise hired former Oklahoma coach Bob Stoops to be their head coach and GM?
This is, you're expecting me to care because this is about Dallas and Bob Stoops
it's not
from
even
Oklahoma.
about that.
I really don't care. I don't know. I just don't until I see the product out on the field.
Yeah.
Like right now, I guess I'm more interested in the AAF because they've already started to play and everything. And the fact that the XFL is trying to reboot itself again after bombing the first time. It's like, Bob Stoops is a great coach. He retired from Oklahoma, and we all thought he was going to ride off into the sunset. I'm sure he's getting a great contract to come back and coach and be the GM, but it's like, I don't have a whole lot of high hopes for this organization, let alone Bob Stoops coming back. Now, there's been some slight rumors transitioning to the NFL that if Jason Garrett is fired as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, that Bob Stoops could potentially take over that position as as the head coach of the Cowboys. That seems like a more promising position than as opposed to the coach of an XFL team that hasn't even started yet. But that is all just speculation. So as of right now, no, I don't necessarily care. And the XFL, like I said, they bombed the first time, and the only competition they had, their main competition was the NFL. Now they have the AAF that seemed to do very well in its first week or two. More competition, not really sure the XFL can withstand all of that. Nick, last question for you, and I'm pretty sure I know where you're going to go with this one. Do you care that the Ducks have finally fired their coach, Carlisle?
Yeah, I do. I do care. It was getting hard to watch the Ducks. I mean, Jared, they were going down 3-0 every single game. It seemed like 3-0. The first period against Montreal, one of the worst teams in the league, 3-0. Ottawa, 3-0. These teams are terrible, Jared. And so it was surprising that I have the statistics right here. They, why didn't I write? Where is it? Okay, right here. 7 straight losses after losing 12 straight, a couple, like a month back. And they'd lost 19 out of 21. So you had 12 straight losses, 2 wins, 7 straight losses. That is not the recipe for a good team. It sounds like the Phoenix Suns. I'm just saying. So, I don't know why he didn't get fired earlier. We're talking about Randy Carlisle. And it puts more on the GM, Bob Murray, who then gave himself the head coaching duties.
Just said,
I'm the head coach.
Take over.
Yeah, I'll be the interim. The Ducks are giving up on the season. Okay? And I don't understand why, because everybody's back now. Cam Fowler, Silverberg, Getzoff, Perry, Kessler, they're all back. And if you look at the standings in the Western Conference right now, nobody is more than 8 points back, which is essentially equal to 4 games.
How is that possible with how horrible they've been?
Well, because they were in a playoff spot when they started to be horrible. So they have now dropped to last place below the Kings, which I never thought would happen. And they played tonight, so they could go above the Kings. But then the Kings also have a game on them, so they potentially could go up 2 points ahead of them. But nonetheless, the Ducks are only 8 points out. And if a couple teams lose, including them beating Vancouver, who's just ahead of them, they could be 6 games out, right? So they still have a chance, which is why I don't understand. I honestly thought that the ownership should have fired both the GM and the head coach like the Kings did earlier this season. The Kings, they fired Rob Blake, the GM, and they fired John Stevens, head coach. The Kings have now been playing the best hockey they have been the last month. They look like a potential playoff team now. They didn't look like that earlier in the season. And so I thought they should have fired Bob Murray. He especially shouldn't be head coach. It just seems like they kind of have given up on the season, and it's disappointing because they're that close to the playoffs.
Quick question.
Yes.
Has he ever been a coach before?
You know, I believe he has been, and he might have actually done this, he's done this in the past.
What, in like an intramural hockey league or what?
No, maybe when he was like 12 years old, maybe something like that. No,
okay.
No. But yeah, it's more of like that he doesn't even trust his own assistant coaches to be like an interim head coach, or he didn't have a guy on his mind, having lost 19 of 21 that you didn't think you might. It's just blind loyalty to Randy Carlyle because they won the Stanley Cup in 2007. 2007. Okay, 2007 was a long time ago. That's not even relevant to how hockey's played anymore. The style of play. They were led by defensemen like Niedermeyer and Pronger. That's not the way the NHL is led by scoring now. Look at who just won the Stanley Cup. Ovechkin, guys like that. So it is crazy that this situation has happened, and it's disappointing to be a Ducks fan. I know Ducks Twitter has been all over the story, which is why I wanted to bring it up, because I am definitely more of a Kings fan, but I don't like to see both SoCal teams suck. So I appreciate the Ducks when they can make the playoffs, and it seems like when my Kings are in last place, the Ducks for some reason gave up on the season, even though they're a couple games out. Right? Would you give up the season if you guys were 9-8 and 2 games out of or let's say Cowboys were 7-5 and they were 2 games out of the playoff spot? Would you give up on the Cowboys?
Hell no.
Of course not. They're going to finish the season 11-5.
Here's my question: how does the ownership of the Ducks feel about this? Like, do they,
I mean, they have to support it because the GM's still there.
But they could fire the GM.
I know. It's a whole thing.
They're the owners. They have ultimate control. Now they could go and tell the GM, if you want to stay in this position, you are going to go and hire another coach. So apparently they have to be on board with this decision, and that's kind of even more baffling.
It doesn't make any sense.
Kind of an unraveling take here.
Yeah, no, it's he has not worked as a head coach before.
In the National Hockey League.
In the National Hockey, not even in the minors. He went from a player to being essentially a scout and then a GM of a couple teams, and then he signed a 4-year extension in 2013-2014. So it looks like it's his last year of his contract anyway. So it might be over for old Bob Murray after all.
Alrighty.
But yeah, he's assumed the head coaching position for the remainder of the season. So not even. Like, he didn't even give benefit of the doubt to a coach being hired. He's just the head coach. So they play Vancouver tonight. I'm going to be very interested. I'm going to watch the game because I want to see what happens. Maybe the Ducks whoop Vancouver's ass tonight, right? And win like 8-2, and they start this whole thing, and maybe they get behind their GM who traded away like half the team a couple weeks ago. I don't know.
Seeing crazier things
I'm just saying, if the Lakers hired Magic Johnson as their head coach, people would be pissed. So why is it okay for Bob Murray to go in? I know it's hockey. I know people don't pay attention as much, but it's still kind of crazy that this guy is now assumed the head coaching duties when everybody was telling him to get fired. It sounds like a bad situation. So we'll see what happens. We need to move on. We are going over the 11 o'clock hour day because we did start at 9:20.
Yes.
This is the new studio, so we are going to go we're not going to have a 5-minute segment to end the season. We are going over the MLB. Spring training has started. Pitchers and catchers have reported. There are a couple trades, a couple rumors about Manny Machado and Bryce Harper that we want to talk about. And one of the best pitchers in the MLB was signed to a very interesting extension today. So I want to talk about all of that on the other side of this break. It's the Cover 2 podcast on OC Rock Radio and Facebook Live.
Anthony, I read the note over the weekend that Francisco Lindor has a calf injury, And I was like, oh, that's too bad. And then you read 7 to 9 weeks, and this sounds like a much more significant calf injury than we may have initially thought.
Well, it is the trade we were waiting for. JT Realmuto, all-star catcher for the Miami Marlins, traded to the Philadelphia Phillies. The Phillies threw in their top pitching prospect, Sixto Sanchez, a 6-foot right-hander, 20 years old, throws 100 miles an hour. So they get the pitching prospect that they wanted. They also get a 21-year-old lefty in Will Stewart. And Jorge Alfaro, at one point, was a top 100 prospect. He was up the big leagues last year with the Philadelphia Phillies, a guy they were very high on at one point, fell out of favor, and now he's going to get a good chance to be the everyday catcher.
We are back, everyone, on the Cover 2 podcast on OC Rock Radio and on Facebook Live. Thank you for joining us again. This is our final segment of the show, and we're switching topics to Major League Baseball. Spring training officially underway as pitchers and catchers have reported, and as the week goes on, we'll continue to report. I believe by the end of the week, all 30 teams, at least pitchers and catchers, will be in for spring training. If you've been with us on Facebook Live for the entire break, you've heard us kind of discussing the Manny Machado and Bryce Harper and how those guys are still not signed. We're going to roll right into that discussion and basically continue, because I continue to struggle with not understanding why these two star players have not signed with a team. So let's jump right into it. Our baseball guru, Nick, kind of give us a breakdown of where these two players are as far as discussions with teams and when are they going to sign?
Well, so, pitchers and catchers have reported, so technically Manny Machado and Bryce Harper shouldn't be in spring training yet. But it doesn't seem like they're close to signing either. And we're going to, remember, these are rumors I'm going to discuss right now. These are not actual facts or statistics about what these contracts are. The rumor is Bryce Harper had a great meeting with the Giants, who was one of the kind of outlier teams that possibly could have signed. But he had a great meeting with the Giants, and there potentially could be something there. It wasn't released whether it was short-term or long-term, but there could be something there. And Manny Machado, there was rumors that he got a contract worth between $175 million and $260 million from Chicago, the Chicago White Sox, so not much there. You don't even know how many years there are in there. But so there, the White Sox are still interested. They have a couple of his good friends and family members on that team as well. And there was a rumor that the Yankees offered Manny Machado 7 years, $220 million, which would be over $30 million a year. And he did not accept that. Now, it's a rumor, could be untrue, but if it is true, he didn't accept that deal to form a lineup where he'd be with Giancarlo Stanton, Aaron Judge, and many of the other Yankees star hitters. So the reason Jared and I were talking on break is because we were, you were wondering what these guys are, why people wouldn't be accepting deals over $30 million
what are you waiting for, man?
To play for a World Series team. And I kind of agree with you on that, too. If he is declining this Yankees deal, maybe they said, oh, well, you potentially might have to platoon some games with like Troy Tulowitzki and Miguel Andujar, Gleyber Torres, and maybe that's where they're struggling right here. It's like, we're going to give you the money, because for the Yankees, we'll give you the money, but you're not going to get to play what position you want. You're going to still have to play third base. Something like that, right?
Because he's shortstop.
Didi Gregorius, too. Didi Gregorius is a great player, and if you can have a lineup where you have Didi Gregorius and Manny Machado in it, that's better than having Manny Machado and, let's say, Miguel Andujar. So I think that's where he might be struggling on that decision, just basing off the top of my head. And the Chicago deal might be, I'm playing for a non-contender, so I want more money. But like you mentioned, why are they nickel and diming between like $32, $33, $34 million and not just signing with a contender for $30+ million? I agree with you. I don't understand it. With the Giants, I have heard that Bryce Harper wants to sign long-term no matter what, and he has Scott Boras as his agent, and that's probably what's going to happen. I think Bryce Harper actually would hold out to get a big contract.
Really?
But if you look at the Giants, because that's been the big rumor, and that's actually, if I had to predict right now, I think that's actually where he'd end up. Based on these rumors and based on the cover that's gone, and it was the GM that came out with this. This wasn't some rumor that was spread by Ken Rosenthal or John Heyman or an Adam Schefter type. This was the GM of the Giants, who was the former GM of the Dodgers last year, came out and said that they had a great meeting with Bryce Harper, and he believes they thought the meeting with the Giants was good as well. So you look at the Giants, that's a great foundation to build on having a star player for potentially 10 years. Give him the contract, right? The Giants are going to suck next year if they don't sign Bryce Harper, okay? They have an aging catcher whose statistics are still very good, and he's still an MVP candidate every single year, but he's going to get older and older, and with catchers' knees, you're going to get older and older quick. Ask Joe Mauer, who just retired. And a lot of their better players have underperformed the last couple of years. Joe Panik, Brandon Crawford, Evan Longoria is getting older and older as well, and they've just got rid of Hunter Pence. They do have a star catcher in the waiting in Joey Bart, who's a prospect, and a prospect outfielder as well. But if you sign Harper, you have foundation to build around a star. And Bryce Harper would be able to live in the Bay. Like I was mentioning off break, I personally believe, off topic, that Kevin Durant signed with the Golden State Warriors because of his shoe deal, and because his shoe deal was his top payer, the people that were paying him the most for one of his contracts, his top employer. And so I think because Bryce Harper has the biggest contract in baseball with any of these, shoe deals as far as Under Armour goes, Under Armour, I believe, is paying him more than the Nationals were. Definitely paying him more now. He doesn't have a contract. So I think they might be leading him to possibly go to the Bay Area as well. And that's why I think he might go there. They're like, D.C. has nothing. Washington, D.C. has nothing. If you're not signing long-term with the Dodgers, obviously that doesn't make sense. And there's all these other teams that he could sign with. Philadelphia is not the most, photogenic place to live, and it's not the best marketable place to live. It's a great market, but not the best marketable, or not better than the Bay Area, San Francisco, Silicon Valley, right? And so that's where it could be. And I think Harper should think about that stuff and maybe think that if Under Armour is paying you all this money, like you were saying, why not just take a little bit less on the contract, because that's your top employer. Kevin Durant's done it in some ways, short-term deals. Steph Curry's done it, shorter-term deals. And LeBron James has done it with shorter-term deals because they know they don't need a long-term deal. They got these huge shoe deals. So that's my take on it, at least this situation with Harper and Machado. But I do agree with you. These guys need to sign these contracts because there are other factors that can get them that extra couple $1 million.
Right.
Especially with Harper, who's top,
Exactly. That's my big argument. And we were talking about this off air as well. And it's like, okay, Harper's waiting for Machado to sign, or Machado's waiting for Harper to sign. Yeah. It's like, first of all, I don't think those guys are comparable. Number one, they don't play the same position.
No, yeah.
Number two, I think Harper is a better player, more of a franchise player if we're talking about stars and superstars. Obviously, Machado is a great player and can help your organization. But, listen, spring training has just gotten underway, and both of these players are not signed yet. Now, whether they're being greedy, whether teams are not offering them the right contract, we do not know that specifically. But piggybacking off of what you said, yes, if this is coming down to like $5 million or even $10 million, these players can make that up with endorsement deals, whether you want to talk about Under Armour or Gatorade or whatever it is. Like, in today's world, a lot of times, and the majority of times, it doesn't matter even what sport you're talking about, your sponsorship money is going to be more than what your club or team is paying you, right? So, take $3 million less from an organization that you want to go to and make that up with your endorsement deals in the offseason, travel and do all the other stuff that you have to do. But it's like, I just feel that these guys are hurting themselves right now by not already being signed with a team, not getting familiar with that team, because now when you sign with a team, it's like you don't have that opportunity to really build that camaraderie in the offseason. Now you're kind of going on the fly, trying to get yourself squared away, and it's like, okay, boom, we watch you out on the field and let's go play. It's like, it's just, I don't know. For me, I feel like you want a little bit of familiarity, and you want to set yourself up for success, and you're ready to go. Like, I get spring training is a month long, and you have time to prepare. It's not like they're just jumping into the regular season cold. Yeah. But still, in a sense, they are a little green as far as the surroundings that they're in, and the team that they're with is going to be completely new. So, I feel that these guys should have signed already, and I really don't know what the holdup is. If your word is true that Harper is really holding out for a long-term deal, then you're right. Maybe he does hold out. Yeah. And I don't remember the last time that we've seen a Major League Baseball player hold out like this.
Yeah,
right. Usually something will always work itself out. Another small tidbit point I do want to make on Harper potentially going to the Bay Area. If I'm correct, the Giants ballpark is a pretty big ballpark, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a factor.
And with him being a left-hander, having to hit that ball over that huge wall.
Yeah.
And in the wall. I mean, that's now obviously that's
the right center gap 420.
Yeah, that could does that play a factor at all with him potentially with his stats and maybe not hitting as many home runs?
It does, and the cold air as well. I just go pull the ball. It's like 309 down the line, but you're right, it's a big wall. Reminds me of the Angels a little bit, where they changed the fence to where now home runs are more applicable because the fence was too high.
Exactly.
But you look at Harper, that is going to affect his stats. He's going to have a lower average potentially because balls are going to fall. Those nights in San Francisco, home runs don't happen.
Right.
Okay. It's like maybe during the day it's a little different, but there's literally a bay behind the stadium. Like it is cold air coming in, and then the ballpark is not meant for lefties. I know Barry Bonds used to hit 500-foot home runs.
Well,
but
there was a reason
other
for that.
factors. Those balls were going over the fence. But Bryce Harper, I honestly don't think that's as much of a deal breaker with him. I think that the Giants would take maybe a lower average, a little lower on base, maybe a couple less home runs to be competitive next year. Because like I mentioned, the Giants are, in my opinion, the worst team in the NL West if they don't, let's say, sign a Bryce Harper. I think they honestly should just trade Madison Bumgarner and start rebuilding right now. And try to do a quick rebuild like the Chicago White Sox are trying to do. Because Giants are about to have all their best players be like 33 years old. That does not work for anybody, okay? You ask the Phillies a couple years ago when they had Chase Utley, Jimmy Rollins, Ryan Howard, all these guys that got super old, and then the Phillies have been essentially trashed until last year. So you don't want that to happen to you. So if you can go and sign Bryce Harper, you get people in ballpark for sure. You have a star to surround yourself. And for the next couple of years, you still have Bumgarner, you still have Buster Posey, Brandon Crawford, Evan Longoria in your lineup. That's still a pretty solid lineup. That lineup could make the playoffs. So I'm just saying.
Potentially. So just very, very interesting stuff there. I know we got a little bit more on the Harper train than the Machado train.
Well, in Machado's case, too, to go back to him really quickly, Machado, you look at him, and there was obviously the hustle issues. And I don't think that's that big of a deal because there's a lot of guys that don't necessarily hustle, quote unquote, in the MLB. But with Machado, played for the Dodgers last year. And with that lineup, it's a pretty stacked lineup, and the Dodgers, they got beat pretty bad in the World Series. Machado didn't make that big of a difference. So if you're looking at teams and they're going, well, Machado couldn't even make a difference for that Dodgers team in the World Series, why would he make a huge difference? Why is he going to be like our franchise guy? That's why I think the Yankees go, hey, we'll offer you $30 million because we got Judge and Stanton too. We're not putting you as our franchise guy. White Sox a little different because I think they want to be competitive with the Cubs. I mean, the Cubs, for God's sake, have a network now. All right, White Sox are becoming an afterthought in Chicago, so they need to do that. But I don't think Machado really should think about himself as the focal point of a team. I think he does, which is why he's waiting for these contracts.
Right.
I don't think teams actually do though.
True. So that's where I think he, whether it's himself,
take the
his
30 million.
agent, $30 million over 7 years.
That's a lot.
Plus a sponsorship or whatever. It's like, dude, how much money do you really need?
Yeah.
And like I said, at some point, you get $30 million plus your sponsorships, plus you get to play with the Yankees, who are one of the World Series favorites. It's like, hello?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It just doesn't add up to me. It really doesn't make sense.
It's very interesting.
If that is the real offer. Like you said, a lot of this stuff is just rumors.
Yeah.
And there hasn't been any total solid ground. But if these are indeed true, then yes, I don't know.
These teams are interested for sure. It's not. We're not making up the teams, but the offers, might be a little off, and the Yankees might have actually offered him $17 million a year, and that's why he's waiting. But nonetheless, we do need to move on. We were just talking about the Phillies a little bit. They made a huge trade and some noise today with trading for JT Realmuto. Now, JT Realmuto was regarded as the best catcher in the league, and he's a young guy with control on his contract. His cap hits only $6 million, which is nothing in the MLB. And the only reason he got traded this late in the years was the Marlins were asking for 2 top prospects or 1 super prospect. Cody Bellinger, maybe Vlad Guerrero Jr. from the Blue Jays, something like that, something ridiculous, right? And so a lot of teams were out when they heard that. They said, we don't want to give up 2 prospects. He's just a catcher. We can figure it out. Dodgers, for example, traded for Russell Martin, and now are combining a platoon of Austin Barnes and Russell Martin. We'll see how that does. But they weren't willing to give up 2 or 3 prospects or give up like a top guy like Bellinger or Walker Buehler, right? They're just like, no, we're not going to do that. So Real Muto gets traded to the Phillies because they gave him 2 prospects. They gave him Sixto Sanchez, who's the number 27 prospect in the MLB, and has been a top prospect the last couple of years. He's a right-handed fireball pitcher, and Jorge Alfaro, who has been a top prospect in the Phillies organization for a while and has been playing for the Phillies organization in the MLB for the last couple of years. They also got a guy named Will Stewart, who's another very solid prospect, but kind of was just a guy thrown in the deal. So Real Muto gets traded, and because the Phillies accepted. And I think the Phillies realize that they have a chance this year. And if they're able to sign, go back to him, Harper or Machado, that lineup is looking pretty solid. You got Real Muto, Gene Segura. I'm going to forget a bunch of guys, but you got a lot of guys. And then you're also led in the pitching category by Jake Arrieta and Aaron Nola, who are very, very good players. And Aaron Nola, for example, just signed a 4-year, $45 million extension. So he's sticking with this team for 4 years. So the Phillies go, they make a good deal, they trade for this catcher. I just wanted to get your take on, do you think teams should have offered more for this guy, or do you think it was okay for some of these teams to say, you know what, he's a catcher, the catching position isn't necessarily a deal breaker in the MLB? What was your thought on this whole trade?
Yeah, no, I think that's really what it comes down to is the position. You know, if he was a starting pitcher, or if he played a position in the outfield, or a position of more importance. I'm not trying to say that catching is not, obviously, but I think that's really came down to the fact of his position, and that's why maybe he didn't get the deals or offers that he expected. But guess what? He's going to a Phillies organization that is trending upwards right now. Obviously, they just extend Aaron Nola. You know, they have, I believe they have the most money to
close
spend.
To. They have a lot of they have a lot of cap room.
Right, they have a lot of cap room to spend. So even if it's not this upcoming season, I feel like in the next year or two, the free agents that they will be able to sign to complement with these players that they already have, I think they're positioning themselves greatly to really start contending after really being pathetic and horrible. and you know, they were retooling and reloading, so I understand that. But they're trending upwards, like I said. So for him, I think it was a good signing. And I think, you know, at some point you also have to say, okay, regardless of your age, you have to say, why am I playing? Am I playing to have an opportunity to win, or am I strictly playing for the money? So I think for you know, Real Muto, it also came to the factor of maybe not this year.
Miami's terrible. Yeah.
But maybe in a couple years, this team will have a legit chance to win, and I want to be a part of that. Yeah. So I think that also played a factor.
No, yeah, I mean, looking at the salary cap, there's a lot of controlled players, including Real Muto. Some of their best players. Like I said, Aaron Nola, they got a deal. Okay, Mike Trout, when he signed one of these deals, signed for like $25 million. Okay, Aaron Nola just signed for $11 per year. Okay, so they got a great deal on him. And you're looking at the other guys in the organization that are solid players. Odubel Herrera, $5 million cap hit. Aaron Altherr, $1 million cap hit. Where is, I'm looking for my man, the guy that was in the home run. Rhys Hoskins, they don't even, it's nothing. It's less than $1 million for his cap hit. Even Gene Segura is only $14 million. The top one is Jake Arrieta, but he's your top pitcher, so there's got to be someone signed. So a lot of their top players are signed at next to nothing. So they have a lot of cap space, which is why they want to take advantage. It's like the NFL. You have a lot of control all over these guys. One of the reasons the Cowboys have been very good is because they've had a lot of guys under control, and they were able to sign free agents to bigger contracts while waiting Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott to become older and get that real money. So with the Phillies, they're waiting for these guys to get their real money, and while they're waiting, they're going to maybe sign a guy like Bryce Harper. They're going to trade for a guy like JT Real Muto. So the Phillies, I think, are in good hands. They have a very good lineup next year. They're definitely going to be a playoff contender, and I'm excited. I'm not excited that the Dodgers didn't go for Real Muto, because I think Barnes and Russell Martin are not a good catching tandem. They were statistically some of the worst 2 catchers in the MLB. But nonetheless, the Dodgers are going with them, and they have trust, and they have made the World Series the last 2 years. So I'm not going to argue too much about that. Last topic as far as today goes, we got about a little over 3 minutes to go. Francisco Lindor out with a calf strain for 7 to 9 weeks, which means more than likely he's missing opening day. Jared, the Cleveland Indians already lost a lot of their lineup. Edwin Encarnacion, and many others. Josh Donaldson as well. The Twins are up. They're coming up on him. What do you think this is a big loss for the Indians, or do you think Lindor will be able to come back and the Indians will still kind of control the AL Central?
I think they will because of the fact that their pitching still looks fantastic.
Very true.
Right. Yeah. They still have Kluber, Carrasco, Bauer. I think they will be able to withstand that loss. I think more so than anything, it comes down to their hit. The Indians hitting, and then also in the outfield.
Yeah,
I think that's where they're going to struggle the most this year.
Lost Michael Brantley as well.
Right, lost Michael Brantley. So I think that's going to more negatively affect this team as opposed to the loss of Lindor. I think they have players that can come in and step up and kind of, like I said, hold that down until he comes back. Not that I follow the Indians enough or have too much more to say about that. I really want to get your opinion on this more so. But I think that's where it is. I think from a pitching standpoint, they have more depth there, and I think they can control that loss a little bit more. To where as opposed to the Michael Brantley loss, and as far as the outfield and the hitting goes, I think that's where you could see them struggle at least in the early part of the season.
Yeah, my opinion on this, I do think it's a little more of a concern than you do because. Your lineup is led by Jose Ramirez, who I believe was helped by the fact that Lindor and all these guys were in the lineup. He's a great hitter, was close to winning the batting title last year, and I think that when you only have one guy in the lineup, you get exposed, and the rest of those complementary players, like their catching position, it's not very good. They already lost Brantley, they lost Encarnacion, and they lost Donaldson. Now Donaldson didn't make much of production with them, but still. Now you lose Lindor. So the only guy is Jose Ramirez. And Jose Ramirez is not a franchise guy. He's a great, great player, but he's not someone you're building a franchise around. So I think they're going to struggle a little bit in the beginning of the season. And if they're in a dogfight with the Minnesota Twins, and the Minnesota Twins are legit this year, I think it's going to be very tough for them to win the AL Central. I still think they could probably make the playoffs because of their pitching staff, like you mentioned. But they don't want to be in a position where they possibly might have to trade a Corey Kluber or Trevor Bauer at the All-Star break because their season looks like it's tarnished, right? You don't want this injury to linger for Lindor. And I think if it doesn't linger, they're fine. But if it does, there could be big problems because this hitting lineup for the Indians is decimated from last year. It's not as good, plain and simple. So I do think there will be a little more of an effect of Lindor being injured. But if it, let's say he comes back 1-2 weeks after opening day, I don't think it will be that big of a deal. There you go. You hear the music right there. If you're listening on YouTube, you're hearing Enter Sandman. If you're listening on OC Rock Radio, you're hearing, I believe it's Hardwired by Metallica. It's still a Metallica song, but because of the new studio, I wasn't able to get the other song out. Great podcast today, Jared. More than enough news. Welcome to the new studio. This is where we're going to be recording for the near future. This seems like the place will be. So, great podcast today. Once again, I'm Nick Nenad.
I'm Jared Smith.
And this has been the Cover 2 Podcast.